Hey, 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 ladies! Welcome to Plus Size Curvy and Pregnant. I am so happy to be with you guys tonight for this amazingly special episode. I have a dear friend of mine and sister in Christ. This is Miss JoJo, and I can't wait till we dive in with her. Hey, JoJo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Pregnant and tired, but I'm good.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I know how you feel. Exactly
Yeah.
how you feel. So, JoJo, introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Um, I am a mother. I am a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I love Jesus. I love people. I love making people laugh. I think that's probably one of my favorite things is just being around people and bringing a smile to people's faces. I would say that's like my driver, like what makes my day. Just, you know, allowing myself and others to be themselves, like in a room, you know. I'm a mental health counselor, licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. And I would say that I have experienced different things thus far with this pregnancy journey. Excited to share that with you.
Yeah. So, tell us about your hubby, my dear brother, JR. Tell us about him. How'd you guys meet? Tell us about everything. We love stories.
My J Poo. I met him, I think now it's been 12 years. We met in 2008 and literally on the altar at church. On the altar at church. So he was attending a church first. It was a Spanish church that he was going to. He was invited. He was actually invited by an ex-girlfriend. No, it wasn't even anyone like a real serious relationship. It was someone that he had like started to date, and a mutual friend was like, hey, you guys need to come to this church or whatever. He started going, and he loved it. He fell in love. She didn't like it. She was like, this isn't for me. And she told him, hey, listen, like the church or me. And he was like, so it was nice knowing you, but like, okay, so I'm gonna continue here. He felt like he had, like that was his place, and he was playing the drums there. He was playing the bass. He like taught himself the bass because they needed a bass player. So when I came in, my aunt had invited me to come to this church, and she kept saying, "Jojo, you need to sing. You need to sing." And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel necessarily led yet. I'm just starting here. I didn't want to so one day after church, she put me on the spot. She's like, hey, come up here. And I'm like, and she goes, just sing a song. And, most of the people had left already. So I wasn't like, singing in front of the whole church. But she's like, just sing a song, JoJo. And JR is the one that found my note for me. Like, he was like, hey, so what are you going to sing? And then like, he like smiled at me. And that's the smile. That's the smile that did it. We ended up going, not just me and him, but like a group. Like right after us, meeting and singing the song, the pastor was like, "Hey, let's go grab a bite to eat." And we went to like a food truck, and I was being silly, and laughing, and he was smiling because he's shy. He's kind of like the quiet one, and I was, being a little loud. So he loved that about me. So he's like, oh, she's funny. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. And then we just kind of started to get to know each other a little bit more. Fell in love. Fell in love.
I love it. I love it. I love hearing how women get swept off their feet. Little things. She was like, that smile got me. He didn't have to say anything else. He found my note, ding, 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 ding. And then he just made me smile. You got me. I
He
love
literally, I
it.
remember him looking up, and that sweet, like, I don't know, that smile. He has $1 million smile. So
I love it. I love these two together. Love it, love it, love it. So you guys met at church and he just swept you off your feet with a smile, honey. Y'all went and had fun and ate at a food truck. So what happened next? I mean, I know you guys got married, but tell us that story. So the
okay,
journey to the
so
altar.
I had never I hadn't been in a serious relationship. So I never ever called anyone my boyfriend at that point. So I was like, I was a little hesitant in the sense of, making this official. I knew I was in love. Like, I knew I was really feeling him. And he, was feeling me. So we had gone out a couple of times, and we finally had that talk, like, listen, like, let's make a commitment. Let's, be serious. And we fasted for 3 days, and the Lord confirmed that to us, and started dating. And we just knew it was serious. It never went through the stage or a state of, would this just be dating? It never felt like that. It was like, I'm gonna marry this man. And our relationship went through many different like phases, and as far as like getting to know each other, and moments of like, of course, doubt, I think, in every relationship. But as far as like knowing that this was for the long haul, I would say I knew that, oh my goodness, instantly.
Oh, I love it. Yes. So you guys get married. And of course, how long between getting married that you guys, after you got married, excuse me, that you decided that it's time to start a family?
So I knew before he knew. That was actually probably a bit of a rocky place, because I wanted to be a mom since, we know us girls how we are. Like, I just, I wanted to be a mom the moment that I was around children. I just loved it. I was always around children. I had been a nanny when I was going through school, and probably still one of my favorite jobs that I've ever had, because I had twin babies, twin little girls. I loved it. So I couldn't wait to have my own. So I was ready, and I'm like, I'm ready when you are. And he's like, yeah. So, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it a little bit more. Anybody that knows JR, like, he's the sweetest. What you see is what you get. Like, he is sweet and he's kind, but he's way more logical than I am. Like, I am quick to say, like, the Lord, like, we can do this. And he's like, so there's a couple steps I haven't gotten to yet, on my list. And once we get there, we can, make that step. And so I was there, and he wasn't. And what we did was we sought counseling to talk about it, because I started to get a little resentful. Like, give me a baby. You know what I mean? Like, I want your baby. I wanted his baby. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I did.
Give me that baby, man. Give me the baby.
Give me the baby. And I would say within 1 or 2 sessions, just sitting and I think allowing him to get his thoughts out, and hearing me listen to him. I think even just having that mediator talk through these feelings, and understanding that, just so we're able to understand each other's feelings, and fully get everything out. And I think that's what got us to where I was like, it's time. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. And being that you're a mental health counselor, just even stepping out and seeking therapy in an area that you're an expert, I think that is very key to making logical decisions. And you sound like me. You're like, my emotions said, we ready. And JR's like, babe, we gotta cross some T's and dot some I's real quick. It sounds like a little animosity happened there.
See, when it comes to, I'm very romantic and I'm very passionate. And so even when it was like, when we both knew we wanted to marry each other, let's do it. And he, again, he had his little checklist. So that's just, I know that's him. And it's a nice balance, because, I think that he helps kind of bring me a little bit down to earth. And then I just kind of, also bring out the more of a spontaneous dreamer in him too.
Good. You need that balance. It's healthy. I mean, I would say, because we can't both be crazy. Somebody has to be sane in the relationship. That's why I said my husband, we can't both. We have to, somebody has to break some checks and balances. So I love that. I love it. love seeking help. I love seeking insight, especially godly insight. And I love the part where you said too, back when you got married, you both sought God first before
Mm.
even dating. I remember sending my husband to go pray and fast when he asked me out. So he was like, I have never had such a super spiritual woman. Cause I was like, super spiritual. I'm just asking you to check with God.
If,
Yeah, I gotta make sure you're
yeah.
not making a mistake and I'm not making a mistake.
Listen, I had never given anybody a title. I'm like, I'm not about to give someone a title that didn't hear from the Lord.
You better say
So,
that again. You better say that again.
so
So
yeah.
you guys go to counseling and you get your yes and we're trying. We're having fun. Tell us about this journey to conceiving.
Oh, it was, I think that I hadn't even thought of the scary things of conceiving. I went in so innocent and so naive, I would say more so. Just let's do this and I'm going to get pregnant. And I did. I did. I got pregnant pretty almost immediately.
Yay!
But I
Yeah.
lost that. That was my first loss though.
Oh wow. So we get pregnant, you prayed, you fasted, and then we have a loss.
Oh, and I fell in love with this baby because I saw the baby wiggle. I saw that. Yeah. So
Oh
it was
wow.
difficult.
Are you okay about sharing about that journey?
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more because this is sensitive, ladies, and I don't want to poke and prod. I feel like we have to be respectful. We have to check, first. So asking someone permission to talk about, their losses, you have to make sure you do that. And you guys, you know how I am about ensuring that as we go through this journey, we're enlightening each other. So I want you to know that if anyone has ever had a loss and they've shared that in any kind of way, just ask for permission before continuing to ask questions.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
And
just
this is now, like 6.5, 7 years ago. It did take a lot of processing. It took just understanding that whole entire journey of it. So, here we are. We had this discussion of having a baby. We finally start trying, and I tell you about it being naive. I mean, it wasn't calculated. It was more like, just have fun. Let's just have a baby. And then it's like, I'm pregnant, I'm so excited. I couldn't wait. I bought like, these I went to the dollar store and I got a bunch of little baby stuff, and gave like a gift to my in-laws and told my parents. And I was gonna wait till 12 weeks to like tell the world, but my parents could not hold it. Like they just made this announcement, we're gonna be grandparents. So they actually blew my cover um before I even could. And I had, like I said, we went to our first sonogram and like, I'm like, oh my goodness, it wiggled. And what you do is you start, and I think what's difficult about that is that you you it even though that you're pregnant for 60 days, 90 days, however long that you're pregnant, every day you're dreaming. Every day you're thinking of what the baby looks like, what the baby's going to come out, what's going to happen when the baby comes out. So it's not just, oh, I guess we'll try next time. It's more like when you wake up the next day and you are no longer pregnant, it's the feeling is, what now? I'm not a mommy anymore. Like you start telling yourself, I'm a mommy. You start taking care of yourself a little differently. You start, especially when you go in so, naive, like I using that word. And it's a beautiful naive. It's not I wish I knew more. I think I knew enough. I don't think you should go in with fear. But it did create for a very big drop. You know what I mean?
right.
The drop. I just remember um, driving home from the doctor's office, just like, what? What? So um, I found out there when it was just going to be, it wasn't supposed to be a sonogram when I went in and found out, but they couldn't find the heartbeat. And then they do the portable sonogram. And then they ended up taking me to a bigger room and doing And at that point, I just knew at that point. So the doctor talks to me. He was awesome. And he didn't want me to wait. This was like on a Thursday, so he didn't want me to go the weekend. So he said to, I'm going to schedule you tomorrow. I'm going to see you tomorrow and let's do a DNC. Because I'm not sure the term. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called a silent miscarriage. And I think that's when you don't have any of the symptoms and, you're not having cramps, you're not bleeding. So I hadn't already miscarried. I had already miscarried for 2 weeks.
Oh.
And I had no clue.
So you never felt ill, you never felt cramping, nothing. No. Wow. What that thank you, first of all. I can't even talk. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, to even open up and talk about that, because there's a lot of healing that has already taken place that you can actually talk about that. And did you know how far along were you at that time?
I was just about 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Almost 12 weeks, and the baby had passed at 8 weeks and 4 days. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I think it was 8 weeks and 4 days, yeah.
And
so at this point, I was almost at the place where I was gonna, supposedly like that whole safe place.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so deep and so touching, JoJo, because you wanted the baby so bad. You prayed for the baby. You and your husband discussed the baby, and here it is, you had a pregnancy. And like you said about dreaming, I mean, every woman, we dream before we even get pregnant. Like, how will we be? How will we look? How will this baby be? How will just the symptoms of pregnancy? And then we count down. It's like the clock, happens once we get pregnant. And then to have that clock stop so abruptly. I mean, what did that do to you and JR emotionally?
In the moment or long term?
It could be both if you want to share.
So in the moment, I think I couldn't see necessarily how it impacted us at the moment in our relationship. I didn't see how it was actually going to bring us so much closer. Because the same beautiful growth and experience and what's the word? Just like, I would just say closeness that you have when you create life together. There's an equal growth in losing life together. I don't know if that could be a trigger for some, and I apologize for that, because when I use the word growth, there's wisdom gained and loss.
That's true.
So for some, like I said, it could be difficult to hear that if they're in the middle of their loss.
Right.
The same way when you hear people talk about purpose and you hear people talk about, Lord, he knows why he did this. Oh my gosh, that was hard for me to hear. I remember the first time I went to church, the song was, he gives and takes away, gives and takes. And I'm literally going, he took away. Did he take away? It was difficult at that moment. Like, so he gave and took away? Like, is that what he chose for me? So I think that it was such a it just felt like I couldn't see I couldn't see the silver lining at that point. I couldn't see the, oh, we're going to try again. It was more like, it's over. It's done. What do I do now? So that date that I had of that due date in March, it's no longer there, So things like it's just I can go on and on about it, but it just puts you through a loop. It's one day you're a mom and one day you're not.
I can actually, see how that can be difficult to even try to process, because like you said, it's like today it's all great, and we go to the doctor's appointment and everything's changed. So all the little trinkets you bought for the in-laws, and they've already told everybody. How are you feeling at that time? Like you have to retract like information. How did that process go?
Um, that one, I think because of my how I'm just such an open book. I don't even have secrets. I'm just such an, it's not that ever I share every personal thing about me, but I wear my heart on my sleeve. So, as I saw people and if they asked and if they knew, I'd tell them, I lost, you know, um, and I just, I think it didn't affect me negatively as it could have others. Now, like I said, I did hear some comments that I question. I'm like, really? Like, what kind of advice is that? I didn't even ask for advice, but why'd you even say that? Like, some stuff was just dumb, like dumb. And I never told them you sound dumb, But in my head, I'm like, that's stupid. Like, don't say that to somebody, you
Yeah,
know?
because you're going through a moment of grief, but it's an odd moment of grief. And the reason
Mhm.
why I would kind of put it there is because there's anticipation, and although you've never met or spoken or heard voices or saw faces, the dreaming part of it made that child even more real. The want and the love of mom. It was like real. It was like real, like figuratively. Like I could see face. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like real. Like I held, like you held them in your arms, but you held them. You're holding them in your heart, and you've never had the chance to hold in your arms.
Mhm.
So that's a grief that I mean you can't really put into words. So if people come to you with no sensitivity and have no idea how to even process that,
Bro, people try to bring me like stats, and I'm
right.
like, oh, 1 in 3 pregnancies end in miscarriage, and I'm like, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I'm like, it is common. I go, and so is cancer.
right,
Tell that to
right.
someone that's suffering with that.
That
Try not
person's not
to.
going to receive that very well.
Oh, I feel better now. It's common, you know.
Yeah, I have a common, disease. It's just not right. And I feel again with these series with plus size curvy and pregnant, I want people to just be enlightened how we talk to people during these times. It's not. It's easy for you to say. It's not easy for other people who are going through it to receive. So where do we find the balance? We just have to have that sensitivity. What if it were us? You know, and I find it difficult sometimes to sit back and listen to people talk about other people or other situations because I'm like, you don't even know what that feels like, and you're bringing me stats. I don't even know how I would. You see, you know what, JoJo, you're so much more graceful. I would have been like, listen, let me school you really quick on how I'm feeling this very second. And you may not ever injure or re injure somebody in that way again. So, really, this is an opportunity for you to grow. Let me just go ahead and help you get there.
Oh, for the most part, I would say 90% of the time I was trying to handle it as gracefully as possible. I think there was one person in particular that I had to school. She gave me the stat. She's like, um, well, you know that. And she gave me the whole 1 in 3. I was like, yeah. And then that's when I had to lay some information on her. I said, and you probably shouldn't give a person that's grieving stats. So, and I think
Right.
that my reaction, now I wouldn't, of course I've healed but you know what? I say there's a few things that you can keep in mind for those that are like, okay, well, how do I, help someone I think the one thing to keep in mind is if you're struggling with what to say, that might be a cue to not necessarily come up with something to say.
Right.
You don't have to come up with this profound knowledge, wisdom, advice, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes you're just with the person. You can let them know. You can say, I've never been there. Can't imagine what it feels like, and I'm sorry.
Right.
And that's it. I'm sorry. I'm here if you need me. Um, I think you don't have to necessarily have experienced, miscarriage to be able to relate to someone else's loss,
Right.
but if you don't have necessarily the words, it's okay. It's okay to not have words to give someone else, but sometimes less is more.
Less is always more when you can't find something to say. You just know that you're protecting others, And if I ever feel like I can't even encourage someone, the first thing I'm gonna do is just like, can I just give you a hug? I want to just give you a hug. Can I just pray for you? Can I
Yeah.
bring you something? Because I don't know what to say in this moment, and you don't have to know what to say. That's the thing. But we've trained ourselves to want to always have an answer, and that's not a
Exactly.
problem. You can have an answer to, loss in miscarriage. You don't. You just don't. You just don't always have an answer for that. But you've gone through this loss, you and JR, and what's going through your mind about conceiving afterwards? What was that looking like, if you don't mind sharing?
My doctor said, have one more cycle and start again. And I did. And then I had another positive pregnancy test. But it wasn't Mila. It was another loss. So it was a what you call an early miscarriage, or there's another term for it. I can't think of it now. But you show
Chemical.
positive chemical, where you're technically on the charts 5 weeks pregnant, and you have all of a sudden you start bleeding. You could even have symptoms and everything. And then that happens. Boy, at that point I'm like, man, I'm down, getting kicked when I'm down. Um, so I would say that was
Wow.
just, and you know what, I just like, I challenged and I think what was hard is that I challenged my faith at that moment too, because I was like, you know what, I know you're scared, and I went to the store and I bought a onesie.
Yeah.
I bought a onesie, and then I went to my sister and I bought this. And I told her, and she's like, "Oh, Joe." And then I think it was 3 days later, I started bleeding.
Oh, wow.
So, man, it was a tough time.
I can imagine.
You start telling yourself, what's wrong with you? Did I, so many different things. So, answering that question for this next part, for, what happened after this loss, I'm like, keep going, but keep going. And I was trying to keep being aware of somewhat of my cycle, because my cycle was always kind of random days and stuff. But I knew that there were certain like key days, key times. So then I got pregnant with Mila. So try number 3. So that's pregnancy number 3 at this point. And it was a successful pregnancy.
And she is the most gorgeous, y'all. Personality. She's so spunky and beautiful. And
So fun.
so I'm sure. I'm sure. Oh my gosh. So I want you to just tell us a little bit more about, how did JR navigate this with you? Loss number 2. And then we're trying again. And then we have a successful pregnancy. What is the emotional part? What's going on through your mind at that point, right when you find out you're pregnant with Mila?
First, I knew I was, and at this point I'm like, I'm a pro at knowing. I know what it feels like to be pregnant. But I had taken several tests that were all negative. No, seriously, 9 tests, and they were all negative.
What?
9 with Mila. Yeah, I was a little psycho. So I've taken so many tests. Oh my gosh, I don't know how many pregnancies. I've probably taken 200 pregnancy tests. I don't know, not that many, maybe like 100. Not like, no lie, like 100 tests I've probably taken since this journey. But and pregnancy test number 10 came back positive. So I was like, I knew it. And I just couldn't wait to tell him. Like, I didn't do like the whole, cute little reveals that they do. But he's just so full of faith, that man, that he just doesn't waver. He just doesn't, and he's every time he's like, we got this. We got this. And he, prayed over my belly, and he would talk to my belly, and then he knew who, we knew it was a little girl, and he talked to this little girl, and then we gave her a name. So then he talked to Mila, and prayed for Mila. And he never ever showed anything but face
I love that. I
to this
love
day.
that. I love that. And the reason why is because I've experienced that with my husband. It's just like, even when you're like, okay, well, babe, you can't even tell the soul. We just gonna hold on to this just a little while longer. We're just gonna pray together. And my husband's like, we got this. It's okay. God got this. He solidified this. We knew this was, this is it. This is it. And I love that we could, hang on to them, even though we're
Oh yeah.
afraid. you know, it's so good when you have that type of support and that type of strength in your corner. Because I'm sure you being pregnant, in your mind, everything's just jumbled. There's a lot of thought. Can you tell us about your state of mind at that time?
Well, I could say it's a little paranoid, you know, um, just thinking, my poor doctor. Because if anyone that knows me, I'm actually like so like type B, I'm not
Yes.
necessarily like this big planner. Um, I used to like, even when I was through grad school, I remember like they would be like my, classmates, or, you're with them for 2.5 years. They'd be like, what, isn't that like the same folder? Like, do you use the same folder for everything? And I'd have the same folder for like every class. Like, I'd go in and I'd just turn in stuff. And like, I was never this, like I said, like, highlighting stuff, or I'm just like, again, I'm spontaneous and real type
Chill.
B.
Super,
Oh,
super chill.
yes. So with this, oh my gosh, I would like my appointments, and I'd make phone calls, and I remember one time I woke up and it was around the 6 month mark, like kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm like, I know I'm in labor. I just was like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I go to the doctor, and my doctor's like, you hear that? That's the baby's heartbeat. You're fine. All right. He's like, that's just stretching. You've never, we haven't been to this point yet. So like, let's let your muscles stretch because you're growing a baby. And he's like, stop it. Stop this.
The
I was
mental
like, okay,
game.
I can stop this. I can do this. It probably wasn't until like month 7 where I'm like, okay, life is sustainable right now, that I actually chilled out.
Right.
And that's happened even with this pregnancy. And then I've had some losses after Mila. Um, it wasn't until this level of anxiety and like,
Wow.
it's
Wow. I
hard.
mean, it takes a toll on you mentally,
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you wasn't that person that highlight and write down and all that kind of detailed stuff, but this has caused you to be that way. You're now
Mm.
like, oh, I mean, I feel this. You're one of those patients. Like, she's going to call every new symptom. Just pick
Yeah,
up
I'm
the
like,
phone.
yes, I feel something.
I
And he's
know.
like, it's normal. You're pregnant. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Right, right. You're pregnant, you're stretching, you're growing, baby is healthy. Oh my goodness. And so Mila is born. How was the birthing experience with Mila?
So with Mila, sorry. Ooh. Um, well, I go into labor like at 1 in the morning. And at first I'm like, what is this? Um, and then quickly went from what is this to, oh, this is it. I wake up my husband, and we get to Winnie. So I'm having contractions at this point every minute and a half, but I wasn't dilating. So they're like, oh, we can't admit you. And I'm like, oh, you need to admit me. And they're like, no, you need to be a little further along. And I'm like, my contractions are every minute and a half. So she's like, try to walk around for 2 hours and come back. At this point, it's like um 4 in the morning. So we're walking around Orange Ave, almost Orange Ave, like where Winnie Palmer is. 4 in the morning, I'm doing squats. I'm like, I need to dilate. I need to dilate. I come back and I had dilated enough, and they admit me. So I get through the process. I'm trying to, stay as long without any epidural. And I'm like, whew, I can do this. After about 7 hours, I was like, give me the meds. I'm like, do what you got to do. She's like, let's wait a little longer. I was like, give me the meds. She's like, try to get on this one peanut ball or whatever. Put this peanut ball, whatever it is. I don't know. It's called the peanut ball or something like that. I'm like, girl, I think you
Give
need to
me the
give me the
meds.
meds. At this point, we're like every minute, you know. But I did never dilated past 5.5. And this is that point, like we're 16 hours in, and I didn't respond to Pitocin. I did respond to Pitocin, but my heart rate and my daughter and Mila's heart rate, it was scary, like to the point where they had to give me an injection of, I don't know what, but kind of brings you back. But I forgot what it's called. I don't know, but I basically passed out. Baby's heart rate went down twice, and me and the doc looked at each other, and I said, take her out. He hadn't even give, or she at that, because it was someone that was on call. She hadn't even given me options yet. I was like, let's take her out. It's good. We good. Take her out. And he's like, or she was like, okay, let's do this. 30 minutes later, it was kind of like a C-section stat. It wasn't necessarily like this emergency C-section. It was getting to the point of emergency, but it's like, we got to do this. There's just, I hadn't dilated. I hadn't moved. And they brought her out.
Oh my goodness. So how was that experience? You're like, okay, well, I thought I was going to push this baby. First of all, I waited for this baby. There's so many things happen before this baby. Here I am going through labor, thinking we're going to have this baby naturally. It's not happening. Is there any point in time that there's fear stricken? And I know you're getting nervous, but I'm talking about like you're like fearful, like something could go wrong if I don't decide to do this C-section right away.
When the heart rate kept dropping, and it was like everybody was rushing into the room and things like that, yeah, I was afraid. But the moment we looked at each other in the eyes, and it was like, it's time to get this baby out, I was just like, I'm gonna see my baby.
That's all you cared about, girl. I definitely hear that, especially you said that yours didn't turn into emergency C-section, mine did. And I remember that moment. I'm like, I waited so long for this baby. I've gone through so much. I can't believe this is not going as my birthing plan. I see you're the B type, like with the same folder. I'm the A type. I'm like, it's been written. I have planned it out. We should not have, any deviations from this plan. And everything deviated towards the end. It was just awful.
Yeah.
So when you feel out of control, more anxiety comes. So you probably were more calmer than I was at that time, because I'm thinking to myself, I had a complete panic attack. Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, I can't believe it. I'm out of control. I'm out of control. But in my mind, all I could process was like, no, we've gone through too much to get to this point. The grand finale, we've got to see this baby. So that moment when you saw Mila's face and you held her for the first time, share with us, girl, after all that.
Well, I see my husband, and he's like, I saw all your insides. He thought that was awesome, because he was there with the surgery. And the baby, and I hear the, and I'm like, oh my God, my baby, Then they put her on me, and I'm like, my babe, I'm gonna throw up. So nausea kicked in. So that I only had like 5 seconds of like, then the nausea kicked in, because I can't handle much, like those kind of meds, anything strong meds, I just can't handle. So I was nauseous and had to pass my baby over to be able to throw up.
Girl, gotta do what you gotta do. At least she was out and she was healthy.
She was out.
That's all that mattered. So now Mila is 6 years old.
She'll be 6 next month.
Next month. Oh my goodness, time's flying. She'll be 6 next month, and you did share with us that you're expecting now. And JoJo and I are actually just a couple days apart in our pregnancy. So it was just so super cool to get to have someone to be pregnant with and who understands the whole journey of just fertility. And tell us from Mila's being born, when did you and Jared start saying, okay, we want to try again? We've had so much things happen, before. We have our miracle baby, and we want to continue to grow our family. How much time in between?
Oh, for me, I was ready 6 months after. Like,
What? Jojo, you are so brave.
I'm like, I want them to be best friends. Let's do another. And then my husband, again, the planner, he's like, well, according to my calculations, we're not ready. And then like a year in, I'm like, I don't know. He's like, my chart is not, we're not there yet. A year, not 2 years in, not there yet. I'm like, I'm ready. So I would say around when Mila was about 4, we were in North Carolina. Um, we were both like, let's do it. It's time. We had met a beautiful couple in North Carolina, and they prophesied over us and prophesied over my womb, and I became pregnant that next month after being prophesied over. Oh my gosh, I was excited, and we were like, oh my gosh. And we were so excited. We were just ready. You know, we had said that we wanted to, then we got this word. So I would say just quickly went into an excitement, you know. I had done even like a little surprise for him, like a little Father's Day surprise. And I recorded it, so I had a video of him like seeing this. He had no clue what he was looking at either. Like he's like, what's this? I'm like look at it. He looks a little, and he sees that it was 2 tests that said positive. So um, we had traveled to Orlando, and then I started bleeding in Orlando, and I realized that this was another failed pregnancy. Now again, it was an early, and it wasn't like the very first miscarriage that I had. The very first miscarriage that I had, I was, you know, further along. This one was an early one where it just didn't, it just wasn't sustainable. So I started bleeding again.
So that was the third or fourth miscarriage?
That's the third one.
Third.
Then the fourth one happened in February of this year.
Oh,
So, mhm, right,
okay.
right before getting pregnant with this one. So that
Wow.
happens in 2018. This loss, and come 2019, the next year, like a little like a year and a half type of thing, you know, like a full year and then some change. We start talking about it again, and like, okay, but I was like a little scared, you know. Um, and come December, it's like we're gonna start trying. Um, and I think it was January where I found out I was pregnant. I think it was the end of January. No, it wasn't. It was the beginning of February. We started trying, and it was in January that I got pregnant. And I found out in February. And super excited. I told my husband in like a little bag. I did like this whole thing for him again. You know, I just really wanted to just keep that excitement going and not, you know. Oh, I was so excited. I was so excited. And my husband was traveling for work. I, you know, had gone and done I think a facial, and I was having snacks and just, you know, and I just started feeling like a lot of cramps, and you know, I'm like, you know, I don't know what's going on here. And then I went to the bathroom, and I was bleeding and bleeding heavily this time. But I didn't believe it. I still was like, what is this? And my best friend took me to Winnie to confirm what was going on.
What was going through your mind at that time? Because I mean, again, like I'm trying to just make sure that we are, you know, very sensitive with everything, but also, you know, telling these women that it's not abnormal if they've ever gone through a loss to actually have these feelings and process those feelings and be okay with processing those feelings out loud. So
Yeah.
what was going through your mind at that time?
Oh, I was mad. At this point, I knew what it felt like to be pregnant. So I always knew the moment. I knew implantation. I felt every implantation. At this point, I had been pregnant at this point 5 times. And with, you know, obviously 4 unsuccessful pregnancies. Um, but I I was just upset. I'm like, I don't know if I want to try anymore. I was feeling just, I was feeling sad and down. I went to the hairstylist. I had been doing, like you can see, like I have the, you know, the light back in my hair, but I went to the hairstylist. I was like, chop it off, make it dark. I had already been debating it, but I was like, I'm gonna dark. I'm like, I'm done. Like I don't even want to like do maintenance stuff. I was just feeling like I was feeling really down. Um, and I had a doctor's appointment shortly after my visit at Winnie, and he's like, "Oh, let's get you to a specialist. At this point, it's just, you know, to have something must be going on, maybe chromosomally." So we scheduled a visit with the fertility specialist. I was able to get in. I unfortunately had to go to that appointment by myself. I could, you know, because Jared couldn't be there, and I went, and I just remember just sitting in the waiting room. I'm looking around, and all the pictures of like babies, you know. And then there's mixture. There's, you know, I have mixed feelings because I have felt what it's like to carry a baby. So there's feelings of like, you know, this you know, inability to get pregnant the second time. Is it, you know, is that's just my journey? You know, you know, so guilt of, you know, you have felt it already. Is that enough? Is it, you know? So I didn't know what I was feeling. But something did feel off by being in this clinic. I don't know. Um, I meet with the doctor, you know, they do like the checkup, and, you know, the nurse takes your like vitals and stuff. And just so many pictures of these professional photo shoots of infants everywhere. They finally take me into the room, and he starts to talk to me about, you know, like maybe my, you know, my egg quality, um, you know, all the potentials, like, is it down? Like, you know, have you ever thought of, you know, in vitro fertilization? And what we can do is we'll make sure that we can find the good eggs, and, you know, talking about this whole process. And I'm like, all I can hear is cha-ching. Like, also I kept hearing, I was like, that's not gonna happen. Like, I'm just not. So he's just going down the whole, and it was his routine. It's not that he was, you know, bad. He wasn't a bad doctor. He was very knowledgeable, but he had his spiel. Like, he had his, you know, like the script, like what he tells he sees this every day. So I'm just like, I just didn't, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I was supposed to be here. And he gives me the information, he gives me the blood work, and he tells me, or the script for the blood work. He's like, I need you to do this, and then after this, he's telling me all the things that I'm going to do, and I'm like, am I really going to do this? And as I'm on my drive home, I'm like talking to God, and I'm telling him, I'm like, you know, I don't know, something feels off, and I'm gonna see what JR feels. And if he feels like we're not gonna, you know, go through with, um, you know, his immediate recommendations and continue trying, like, I'm just gonna put it in, I'm gonna let it be in my husband's hands. That's just how I felt at the moment. So when I finally got to see him and talk to him about it, he's like, I think we're gonna keep trying a little bit more on our own. And I'm like, I don't know, just knowing that he was in the same spirit with me. Like, it wasn't like, well, let's just do all these things and then try because we don't want to lose again. He's like, we're going to try again. We're going to do this. We're going to try again. Um, so I kind of put the paperwork away, and we start trying again. And at work, and I'm like, I feel implantation again. Because I knew it. I'm like, this is now number 6. I know what it feels like. I know it. And I remember just going to the bathroom and just talking to God. I was like, God, you give me this baby. They're yours. I'll give them to you. You know, when you start negotiating with God, you know?
Plenty of times there. Plenty of times.
So I did the negotiations. And some time went by. Um, I think I'd taken a test and it was negative. Then I started feeling like cramps. And then some of the symptoms that I was feeling of like implantation, I stopped feeling them. And I'm like, that's it. You know, that it didn't implant. You know, maybe it implanted and then it, you know, didn't stay attached. You know, you start doing this whole medical talk, you know. Um, and then I started getting mad because the cramps were insane. Like, and I called the lab, and I'm like, okay, I need to schedule this appointment, you know, and I scheduled the appointment, and it had to be done on like the second day of your period. So at this point, I'm like, I'm gonna get it. I just need to, make sure I time it right. And then I just had these rage, like these hormones. My hormones were all off. Like I was just angry. I'm laughing because my poor husband, he'll tell you, yeah. So I scheduled that appointment, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to cancel this because this period ain't getting here. So I schedule it for not for that Friday, for the following Monday, and my period never came.
And what went through your mind then?
It was like, what? I just didn't. I had done such a good job at predicting, and then at this point, like I said, like I felt like the implantation, and I also felt like it was just then it was no longer implantation, that had lost it, and I felt I'm talking about like it was like cycle cramps. You're gonna get it. So it was just shock because I told myself, you have that 88-cent test from Walmart still in your drawer. I grabbed that 88-cent test, and it was like, that line just showed up so clearly. I just couldn't believe it.
Wow. So
I called a
through
girlfriend of
the
mine and everything.
cramping,
Yeah.
through the cramping,
Hmm.
sometimes I'm going to say this because I feel this in my spirit to say, sometimes the devil just tries to shake, the little bit of faith that you're just holding on to. You're holding on, even though you were scared, you were still holding on to faith. Because here it is, JR is like, I got faith. We're going to try again. And then us, we're like, just holding on. And then once we feel that pain, that it's familiar, we fall for the familiar hurt.
Hmm.
And here it is, God's just like, through that familiar feeling, I'm still going to show you my power.
Mm.
I'm still going to show you my power. And I won't forget when you told me you were pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant too. I was like, I had no idea she had been going through that. So to just even be able to see that and to hear the story and hear the details, you just see God just putting those puzzle pieces together, and every single loss, every single hurt, God's like, I'm still there, I'm still with them, I'm still love, I'm still building, I'm still giving. And it hurts, and we're learning, but something you said in the beginning is that grief caused wisdom.
Hmm.
And girl, I know you are packed full of it, full of
Oh,
wisdom.
thank you.
So I mean, y'all. I mean, so now you're 6 months along. We're counting down to November. We can't wait. Do you want to share the gender?
It's a little girl,
It's
another
a
little
little
girl.
girl. So Jr. got there. He gets his girls, baby. He was like, I'm
Oof.
praying for these babies. I'm gonna have girls.
He's a girl dad. And I would say, just to, kind of add to that, like with everything, I would say I was just watching for some symptoms. I think I've recently chilled out. I would say last couple weeks, because she's moving so much, and I can feel her nonstop. So I'm like, hey, what's up, girl? Good
That's right.
morning, because she's like, bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
But I would say there was even one time where I felt some movement so early on, and then I didn't feel her for like 4 days. So I moved my scheduled appointment. I moved it up, and I went in there and I looked at him. He's like, and he puts the Doppler on me. He's like, you hear that? That's your baby. And I'm like, I know, but I didn't feel her. He's like, it's so early on. I'm like, but I felt her, and I was feeling her regularly. And I'm like, she's just messing with me. So I would say that I've recently really started attaching. But think about it, like 4 losses, and then, for the parents, or for mamas, and for the parents that have experienced this and might feel like, why am I having issues attaching? Why am I, not connecting to this? Well, because there's something called self-preservation. Even at the, subconscious level, we're preserving. We're trying to get through every day and get through responsibilities. I have a little girl that, I want to, you know, be healthy for and positive for. So I'm smiling around her. I am, and trying to get through my day. So I really had to, it was hard to fully embrace the belly until recently. And so for people that are struggling with that, I just want to normalize that a little bit and say, it's normal. It happens,
And it doesn't make you less sensitive to being pregnant. It doesn't make you not wanting your pregnancy. It's just like you said, self-preservation. Our brain has a great way of protecting itself, and it withdraws for a little while, and
Sure
that's
does.
and that's okay, because the first thing about the brain is I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to put out too much emotions. I'm not going to, wrap myself up in all the expectations. We're just going to take it one day at a time. And it's still okay to be that way. I know some women out there, they're thinking like that sounds silly. It sounds silly. You finally, you're pregnant. You should be overjoyed. Doesn't mean that those moms are not overjoyed. It's just there's a cautiousness that comes with it, a cautious step. They're like, wait a minute, I have to just hold on to this news a little while longer. I have to baby the pregnancy
Mm-hmm.
and really just relate to the pregnancy because it's so hard to do so when you've had so many losses. So every single mom, I commend you. I commend you. And I can't say I've experienced that, but I can also say just the fear of, you know, possibly losing, I've had, even up till within like I think I was about 4 months, 3, 4 months, I still had that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So moms who have conceived and are pregnant, you still have that fear to that level, but you have never had a loss. But those who had a loss, they have that fear from the first positive pregnancy test, and it doesn't stop until they're like in their third trimester, about to give birth, and actually holding their sweet baby. So, I mean, Jojo, thank you so much for being transparent, telling us your story, walking us through it, and it's such a like a it's somber, because there's so many areas where you could have been crushed, you could have not wanted to try again, but you never gave up hope, and JR never gave up hope. And I feel like this is what this platform is for. That yes, you may have had losses. Yes, you may have cried tears. Yes, you may have felt alone, but don't give up hope.
Mm-hmm.
Something is going to happen, and I believe in God's timing. It will happen. And here, JoJo's here to tell you she has two, and where God answered, and I stand believing with each and every woman that the answer comes. It might not come when you want it or even how you want it, but it comes. Jojo, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you so much, friend.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Like I said,
No problem.
transparency, vulnerability, it inspires, it brings hope, and that's what we're here to do.
So
Okay.
if there's any, like I just want to, sorry to interrupt,
No,
if
go ahead.
there's, anyone that has any other questions about that, when it comes to um, loss and those feelings afterwards of like having, should I still have hope or how much should I share? One thing that I look at is that, the miracle of life is the miracle of life. Like it's that, I think if I go back to that very first loss, because like I said, I actually got to see this baby. I saw it wiggle, and it's like, I'm still grateful that the Lord still had, gave, gave his breath into this creation, and I honor that life as short as it was. So, I think that miracle, only lasted, 8 weeks and 4 days. Um, and said some miracles do go full term, but I still honor that miracle, that those little cells that God said, I'm going to unite them and bring them together. And I see that and I go, oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you, God, for the miracle of life. And, um, just give me the clarity, give me the strength to be able to be in a sound place, in a sound mind, so that I can be complete and whole for my family and for any mamas that need, that help, or that extra encouragement. So I put myself out there if anyone needs that or has any questions.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being open to walk this journey with these women, because I feel like so many times they don't have a support group or someone to even talk to about it. It's like a place of shame for many. Feel like I've had patients who come to me and they're in this sounds really nuts, but postpartum depression. They've been pregnant, they were moms, they've had a loss, and they don't know how to process it because there is no child for them to hold on to.
Hmm.
So they're in there with me, and then they're coming in for medication. I'm not a therapist, but I am trained, to provide that therapeutic processing and some of those coping skills for them. And I always refer them to a therapist because I feel like they need that deepened walk, that deepened guidance. But it's not abnormal that you feel anxious, you feel depressed after that loss. So making
Hmm.
sure that you find that support, seeking that intervention, seeing that therapist to help you process that, so you don't bring that pain into other places in your life and cause a long-term chronic situation. And I do understand loss is chronic, but we don't want it to become long term where it affects every single area of your life.
And relationships, because
Right.
I remember, so I never felt, and I think I've just, it's maybe my personality as well, like I'm just a, I like to celebrate with others, I'm an encourager, I'm a cheerleader, but if let's just say, um just, like I said, every little personality is different. If I would have been around others who are having babies, and resentment can build, anger can build. When I did lose, I was actually working at Beta Center. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, with pregnant teens.
Yes, yes.
So I was working on a grant there where we had, in our facility, it was a huge facility. Not only did we have a school there, we had a daycare there, and we had a residential home for foster teens who are pregnant. So I was walking down the hall teaching parenting, listening to babies crying in our daycare, like you could hear them, and I'm going like, it talk about, the speed up the healing process. And then some teens going like, I didn't know if I wanted to have this baby, and I'm going like, taking my breath, well, but at the same time, I look at that and I'm like, thank you, God. Like, thank you for allowing me. That was part of my healing process. It needed to be for me. It needed to be here and here and here and here. I couldn't avoid it. I was working with babies and teens and pregnancies and, you know,
Right, right, right.
so
You were submerged in it, and
yeah,
you still had to react not only professionally but emotionally,
yes.
and that kind of forces healing
Oh,
more than
oh,
anything else.
I had to face my pain. I did. I couldn't avoid it.
Right. You couldn't run away from it, and it was in your face. But God, He's such a God of comfort and peace. He is such a God of love. And no matter what we go through, He knows our pain. And the Bible tells me that He bottles up every single tear that we shed. And I'm
Hmm.
sure us as women, we've shared, even in infertility, even if you've never had a loss, we've shed tears. And just knowing that God bottles them up,
Mm.
He knows that. And then He can't wait to put a smile on your face, to comfort your heart and heal that wound. um, so I encourage all of you, I encourage each and every one of you to just dig in, dig deep, dig into the Lord if you've ever had that loss, and seek intervention, seek her, seek them. Jojo just pretty much just said, hey, reach out to me. So if you've never processed that kind of pain and loss, I encourage you to do so, because you need that type of healing. And you need to also know that there's still hope despite what you've experienced.
Hmm. Sure.
Goodness. Jojo, thank you for being on here with me tonight. I mean, I love you, girl. So thank you, thank you,
You
thank
too.
you. I always close every single episode with a verse, and tonight it was laid on my heart while JoJo was actually talking. I'm like, you know what, God, what would you want me to close with tonight? And I literally felt something in John, and I kind of quickly looked it up, and John 16:33 comes on. And it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So no matter what's going on in your world, no matter what's going on in your home and in your womb, no matter what stage that you're in this season of walking through infertility, walking through, because we don't stay there. God answers one way or another. Walking through infertility, God's with you. He will give you peace. So take heart. I love you guys. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I'll see you on the next episode. Stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.